This is a replay of Let's Talk Nigeria on Sparkling 92.3 FM Calabar, making Nigeria better, one conversation at a time.
We talk everything. Health, education, finance, sports, transportation, agriculture, politics,
entertainment,
people and power on Let's Talk Nigeria. Let's Talk Nigeria. Every day of the week from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. Only on Sparkling 92.3 FM Calabar. Your radio, your shine.
Hello, welcome. It's time for Let's Talk Nigeria on Sparkling 92.3 FM Calabar, Cross River State, Nigeria. Today's conversation is going to be an interesting one. We're going to look at several statements that have been made by prominent Nigerians as to what is happening presently in the country. Now, some Nigerians have been waiting for past presidents to speak about the state of emergency declaration by the administration of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. And yesterday, we heard the voice of the former President Goodluck Jonathan on this issue. Right. So, former President Goodluck Jonathan, he came out, he condemned in clear terms the state of emergency declaration in Rivers State by President Bola Ahmed, blaming it as a clear abuse of power by the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary. Now, he made this session at an annual colloquium organized by the Haske Satumari Foundation in Abuja. He said several people, when this started, several people contacted him asking for his comment on this political crisis. And according to him, it's unusual for former presidents to comment on the policies and actions of their successors to avoid tension. However, he likened this development to an Indian proverb and accused political actors of knowing what to do, but intentionally failing to do it. In his words, what is happening in Nigeria today regarding the situation in Rivers State is like an Indian proverb that says that if somebody is sleeping, really sleeping, you can easily wake that person. But if that person is pretending to sleep, you will find it difficult to wake that person. He went on to add that key actors in Nigeria, from the executive to the legislature, the judiciary, and the Senate and others are here. And the judiciary, they know the correct thing to do, but they are refusing to do it. They are pretending to sleep. And waking such a person is extremely difficult because the person knows the right thing, a clear abuse of office, and a clear abuse of power, cutting across the three arms of government, from the executive to the parliament and the judiciary. So this is what Mr. Goodluck Jonathan said yesterday about the prevailing situation in Nigeria as regards the political crisis that we saw in Rivers State. Now, he wasn't the only one who spoke. Yesterday, we also heard the likes of Chief Olusegun Obasanjo speak. And Chief Olusegun Obasanjo said something. He said, if you are talking about democracy failing in Africa, democracy in Africa has failed. And he went on to say, why has he failed? Because in context and in content, it is not Africa. It does not have any aspect of our culture, our way of life, and what we stand for and what we believe. And then also the likes of Mr. Peter Obi also said something about democracy not working. He made reference to when he was the governor of Anambra State, the embattled governor of Anambra State, and as at the time he was impeached. The judgment delivered by the court, he received it while he was at home. He talked about the role that Obasanjo played. He also talked about the role that the late President Umaru Musa Yar'Adua played. And he said something that if it's now, the happenings of many years ago will never ever happen. Let's talk about these statements. by these men, the speeches by these men, are they the real things happening in Nigeria? We'll have join us on this conversation the President, Yoruba Youth Council Worldwide, Aare, Oladotun Hassan. Good morning to you. Can you hear me, sir?
Yes, good morning. It's a pleasure to be in your program.
Thank you very much. And in the course of this conversation, we will also hear the voice of a veteran journalist and broadcaster, Mr. Effiong Nyong, as he, shares his thoughts on this very pertinent issue. So let's start with what former President Jonathan said about the happenings in Rivers State and the state of emergency declared by the president. Aare?
Well, the state of emergency has been interpreted by many from different phrasings, from the political point, from the sentiment point, from the legal point, from the social point. So, in view of how it came about, we have to look at the genesis of how we even got to where we are. And the crisis in Rivers State, how it all started, because we were never part of their agreement when this whole crisis started like a mere argument, and it snowballed into party differences. Now it snowballed into ethnic differences between the River, the Bayelsa, the Ijaw, and all these ethnic issues. Now, before it got to the crescendo of the local government election, whereby police were never granted the access to protect the people, whereby guns were just rumbling within Rivers State. And on the heel of the threat of the governor Fubara's position by the 27 members of the House of Assembly as regards the impeachment stand, irrespective of the appeal or the demeanor of the governor, as at the time the governor saw the reality, it was there too late. And at that critical point in time, when it got to a boiling point, the whole world was watching. Everybody was anticipating a brutal crisis to ensue, in view of the fact that impeachment notices have been served on the governor. The 27 members of the House of Assembly never gave the governor any leeway to even come defend or even have any opportunity, because they also equally want to have their pound of flesh. It took Mr. Governor to demolish the State House of Assembly building without recourse to the division and independence of the different arms, bringing his own caucus of members into the governor's office, which is an aberration. So to all this, nobody saw all this, the NBA, nobody makes any critical comment. It was as at the eve when it was about to launch the real attack of impeaching the governor. Because the governor could have just been impeached on the 18th of March, because we were never in the know, because they've already served the notice. And if they eventually impeach the governor, all we're expecting is just to see the handwriting of the 27 members signing. You might even be surprised, maybe other members that are even with the governor might have even signed, because they are all in the same house now. So if that had happened, and considering the fact that before the bombing of the pipeline that people were now castigating now, there have been some videos rampaging the entire social media, threats from the Yoruba Youth Council about the impeachment of the governor and threats to blow up pipelines and all these national assets, is equally in the line. The grip of fear in Port Harcourt, if you are not living in Port Harcourt, you can never experience this. Those that are not living in Port Harcourt cannot tell the story of the kind of grip of fear should the governor have been impeached in line with the constitutional provision, whereby if he's impeached, the governor will have no such opportunity to even talk. Neither will he have the opportunity, even if he goes to court, to go and challenge his impeachment. It might take another 2 years, and I don't see any way of any defense to defend all those atrocities committed. Should there be that they've been having means to reconcile either party through Wike. Wike equally caused a lot of monumental havoc.
You think so?
In as much as this, yes, no, it's a dual havoc. The governor caused havoc, Wike caused havoc. So if two elephants fight, the people suffer, and that's where we needed to look at the imminent danger. When something is imminent, and the cloud is already showing that the rain of death, of evil, is about to fall. And that was the reason why, for me as a person, I gave my total endorsement and support for that declaration of state of emergency, because there were two parties. The State House of Assembly, if they were left untouched, they would still go ahead to function, in view of the fact that what is on their table at that period is impeachment of the governor. They still have the duty to pass impeachment notice of the governor, even if the sole administrator is still sitting within the governor's seat. If the governor too have not been equally, because to me, the governor is the utmost beneficiary of this whole dousing of tension.
So from what you said, Aare, from what you said so far, that the action taken by the president has to do with the exigency of leadership in the favor of Fubara?
It's of necessity. It's not even to favor Fubara, but by virtue of the implication of the action, Fubara is the biggest beneficiary of this whole Ulabalu, because Wike was ready to have his pound of flesh. Do you know that if they had impeached the governor, the speaker will become the governor, while the deputy speaker will become the deputy governor, because they are intended to impeach both the governor and the deputy governor. So the actions were crystal clear. The Supreme Court have given them the leeway because they've been granted their authorized status as recognized members of the Rivers State House of Assembly. So if anybody quoting Section 308, there are imminent factors that gave the president overbearing discretion. It's a discretionary power. It need not be specific that the president can either give an half of a declaration of state of emergency without the removal of the governor. If the scenario differs, the scenario of Obasanjo removing Fayoche was intra-political issues of Obasanjo wanting to assert obnoxious authority. During Jonathan, it was as a result of the incursion of the terrorists taking over local government, and the essence was to protect the state, protect the governor. Declaration of state of emergency went in some local government, not in the totality of the state. All these were part of reason why the issue in Rivers State is a very critical issue that people must look away from political party difference, maybe PDP, APC, because to me, from intelligence which I know the president must have worked on, because that day there was no cloud that the president was to address the nation. It was an emergency which I know that everybody was caught unaware. Nobody was expecting, because we were all just expecting the governor's impeachment. And once that is confirmed, it has the entire impeachment. Let me tell you, you don't impeach somebody like Fubara and you go and sleep. You never know peace, because he himself is the governor of the state. He has built his own cloud of followership. Within that period, his followers are ready to equally launch their own mayhem in retaliation. Do you know how many deaths would have been recording? Because people are saying, is it because we've not been counting deaths on the street? That has averted a lot. The remaining period of settling the crisis now, we must have made everybody to come to terms. And that's why I want to advise Mr. President that this whole state of emergency, with the fact that the crisis have been doused down, the House of Rep have already set out their own reconciliatory committee to join the government. Every critical stakeholder must sit down now and resolve their indifference. So once they resolve all the issues, with the caveat that even if the governor and everybody are restated back, nobody will revisit the issue of impeachment, showing the fact that that will cause a lot of implosion. So it was not about the fact that the president equally met the constitutional requirement of that declaration, because the suspension and not removal, and that's where I want to correct the language being used to interpret the action of Mr. President on suspension when a student is suspended in school is different from rustication. You don't equate both as the same. One is permanent, one is just temporal. So it's a temporal situation that only requires wisdom of all critical stakeholders for us to see that we implore the youth of Rivers State to equally down tension, all this brigandage of let's go to court, let's not go to court. It's not about court that will reassert how far we can be able to resolve. It's about the mentality that we have as Africans, the power absolutism spirit in us, the godfatherism spirit in us is what we have to address. And these are common sense that Nigerians must reason.
All right, Aare, thank you very much. I would have to cut in there. Thank you so far for what you've said. Now, you mentioned the court, and also in light of what Mr. Jonathan said, he also mentioned the court has been compromised and sleeping. And I want you to come from that lens, right? And also the fact that when this happened, the MBA, you are a member of the MBA because you're a legal practitioner, right? The MBA came out to speak strongly on this. So let's look at it from that light.
Well, personally, and in my capacity as the president of the Yoruba Council worldwide, it's not necessarily I must be on the same page with the president of the MBA. He has his own mental interpretation of issues. He has his own sentiments. Some people, let me tell you, from the debris of last 2023 election, if some people are making comments about the present state of affairs in this government, you can go read their past opinion or where their interest lies politically. So, be that MBA, Wole Soyinka, Jonathan, it is all about this country. When this issue, because that's why I differ totally that Mr. President met all the requirements, because the requirement is you make the state of emergency. However, the length of who you are appointing, Mr. President need not appoint a former military person. He could have appointed a professor. He has a discretion. The person he appointed is now a civilian, not a military person. Now, in view of the fact that past presidents are used to appointing retired military personnel, maybe based on their experience in managing state of inferno in security affairs, must have brought that climb to order. But for me, the Section 305 in respect of declaration, whereby there are crises in the state in terms of climate, in terms of unbearable situations, where law and order is already let loose, whereby what happened as at on 18 was that Mr. President only made a gazetted request that he has already declared it, now subjecting it to the National Assembly. And that's where I now still find fault in where people now interpret the two-thirds majority of our National Assembly member. And that's where our democracy is failing. You know why our democracy is failing? We have lukewarm, dull, and representatives that are not passionate. We, in every situation, if you elect a member and whereby there are national issues, your representatives are either in London and taking vacations, and they'll be waiting for them to sit over issues. You look at the UK House of Parliament, they are always full every day. You don't begin to shop for 2/3 of representation of people to be present. It took House of Assembly to wait a day. That shows the lackadaisical nature of those that we call our National Assembly members. A lot of them don't even know their duty. A lot of them are just rubber stamp and looking for favor appointment for their cronies in the executive. So these issues are far-reaching, and that is the nucleus of how about the National Assembly having called for a voice vote is part of the National Assembly discretion. Either you want to tell them, you cannot dictate to the Speaker or to the Senate President how he's going to manage the House. So far, there is no revolt in the Parliament. Those that are now coming out to now stand against the election, what was their demeanor when these things are being passed?
Okay.
If it is about majority and they do not have the majority to support it, they need to give their way. That is policy. But the real issue is that people are blindfolded not to see the reality that lives of River State people were endangered as a result of the crisis.
Okay, Aare. Now you've agreed that the National Assembly should have been properly guided to do the right thing by having enough of the representative in the House. Now, you said something about having the discretion to either go with a voice vote on a matter as important as a state of emergency declaration. It was stated clearly to third of the members, right? Now, the concern here has been when you give or when you go by a voice vote, how then do we determine that a two-third was actually taken into cognizance?
How I wish you are a member of the National Assembly, or you've had experience. Maybe in our days in the university, we've all been one parliamentarian or the other. In the process of head count, that is all about the discretion of the Speaker or the Senate President. Two-thirds, as regards the fact that they have called for that order, and you saw that in that house, even if a pen falls down, you will hear it. When they call for the name, nobody said no. Nobody said no. So it will not be ridiculous for all of us to now sit on our TV and begin to pass judgment that why did these people not vote against it? Because they've all met in the executive session and they met indoor. They must have discussed and rallied around the issue, argue for each other, because that is the code of the Parliament. They have their own modus operandi. Once they've now come out, they must look at stereotyping. Instead of him to even counter the issue, he went ahead to even show the Senate President more standard way of presenting the matter. Look at how politicians reason. He was on the Arise TV countering and raising doors. Look at Ikenga. Ikenga said no. When Obasanjo was attacking him that he collected money, he said it was a constitutional allowance for holiday. So these are the people that you will see every day. How sincere our politicians. So to me, either the House go by two-thirds, all I see is that there was a majority supporting vote. What they requested is two-thirds of the House. Within the same House, meaning two-thirds must have been present. What if two-thirds were not present and they just form a quorum? Once the House form a quorum, that two-thirds of the quorum that is being formed can pass any resolution in the House. When maybe during the era of Saraki was just leaving office and they were passing all these without even going through other. They passed over 20 bills in a day. So the House in different era had their own opportunity in different times. So it was like when Obasanjo was securing for third term, who were pushing the House members that they were sending bags of dollars to? Was it all about voice vote? Was about inner money, who called himself to order with reasoning and addressed them, and they were able to shut down the entire thing. Not that they were not influenced. So the House, it is just about us looking historically to where we are coming from and the kind of people need to be electing as our leaders. Unfortunately, both PK and Fubara, they are both of the same conjugal interest. They both have the same common patrimony in terms of how they are spending River State people's money. Remember, Fubara was the accountant general when PK was governor. These are his boys. These are not just anybody you can go into their midst. It is all about power and ego that finish both of them. So we need to equally address that character of people that we are electing, loyalty. It's not about, there are a lot that revolves around this that people must learn lessons from. The way if we want to start the garage fight approach, in which it was already getting to that for the governor to go ahead. The day I saw the governor demolished, I tell myself, if I were to be the president, that day is when I was declared state of emergency. If I were to be the president of this country, that day the governor demolished the State House of Assembly. That is the day, because there was no court order that granted him such authority.
All right, Aare, I would have to cut in there. Aare, I have to cut in there. We'll continue with the conversation when we return from this short break. Yeah. But so far, so good. Thank you very much. This is Let's Talk Nigeria, and we've been speaking with the President Yoruba Youth Council Worldwide, Aare Oladotun Hassan, on the issues prevailing in River State, the speeches made by the former president and Mr. Peter Obi, and the fact that they have come out to say that our democracy is failing and it's not working. We'll go on a short break. When we return, we will continue. Stay with us.
Coming right back. Just grabbing more chips and salsa.
Sparkle 92.3 FM, Calabar.
This is a replay of Let's Talk Nigeria on Sparkling 92.3 FM Calabar, making Nigeria better, one conversation at a time.
Calabar's number one. Number one. Music, sport, and talk radio. Let it hit on.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Sparkling 92.3 FM.
We talk everything. Health, education, finance, sports, transportation, agriculture, politics,
entertainment,
people and power. On Let's Talk Nigeria. Let's Talk Nigeria. Every day of the week from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. Only on Sparkling 92.3 FM Calabar. Your radio, your shine.
Welcome back. Thank you so much. Let's Talk Nigeria continues on Sparkling 92.3 FM Calabar, Cross River State, Nigeria. Now, Aare has said quite a lot concerning these issues. He's bringing a new perspective to the conversation so far. You too can be part of this conversation by calling the numbers 0812 723 7060, or you can call 0812 723 7060 or 0809 230 0022. Also send a message to the WhatsApp number and to the SMS platform. All right, Aare, good to have you back. Now, let's talk about, you've said quite a lot, and like I pointed out, you have brought fresh perspective to the happenings. And let's talk about what Chief Olusegun Obasanjo said about democracy, and also what Mr. Peter Obi said about democracy and how the democracy is failing. Right? Let's hear what you think about that.
One thing is very clear about our politicians. If they are not been in the seat of power, they raise their condemnation to the high heaven. Don't give them opportunity. You find out that they will also make similar error, even more bigger.
Yeah, Aare, sorry to cut you in. Sorry to cut you in there. We also have Mr. Effiong Nyong, a veteran journalist and broadcaster, joining on this conversation. After Aare, when you're done, I'll get back to Mr. Effiong. Please, you can go ahead.
Yeah, so what I'm trying to say in essence is that Olusegun Obasanjo being a teacher now, I see him as a failed teacher because there is nothing as good as experience. And they say the experience is the best teacher. And the experience from Obasanjo, from the declaration...
We can hear you, Mr. Effiong. Please stay on the line. Okay.
Yes, from his declaration of the killing to removal of governors to the shortage to stopping of Lagos funds and all this, it was more a Supreme Court than even executive. But now he's the one championing restructuring. When he had opportunity, he failed us. Even aftermath of him leaving power, he still believes that he knows it all. Yes, he's a former president. People might see him from different angles. But I never see this angelic advisory from him because I believe he has his own sentiment against Tinubu. So, and ditto Peter Obi. Peter Obi too was a former governor of Anambra State. I saw his interview. Obasanjo gave him cover. Yes, it was as a former aide to Obasanjo, he needs to enjoy such legis. But when he was a governor, he never conducted local government election for 8 years. For good 8 years. So what kind of democracy is he talking about? So when these people are coming on here and fanning themselves as angels, that's why I always remember that book, The Beautiful Ones Are Not Yet Born. I'm only looking forward to a new, brighter sense of leadership to steer the affairs of this country. Because if you have to look at the whole book, none I can find worthy to say, okay, they've been able to put themselves beyond reasonable doubt to preserve democratic ethos. So, should we now want to move ahead, it's all about how do we look at 2027. If you look at 2027 from the preaching of all these same people who in their private time and their private life have not shown themselves to be approved to lead. It's not about somebody sermonizing and creating this mimic of sentiment of a crying leader. No, I'm not run by sentiment. I'm run by what I can see, how the situation is being managed. What we have on ground is easier for anybody to call it a total travesty of shutting down democratic ethos. But in the same manner, is now the interest now, one of the critical pointers that is killing us is our constitution, the same decree. All of us are equal, and that's why I frown each time the NBA are just quick to code the constitution. When is the NBA going to lead the battle for us to end this lifeline of this constitution, which is a military-infested one? How can we be running a decree that empowers the same constitution and converted all of us in the same content of the constitution?
Okay, Aare, let me say something there.
Wait, I'm coming. You know that this constitution have envisaged the military takeover. This constitution we are using envisaged a military takeover. It's just for a military person to just cancel the Decree 21 and announce a new number that best suits it. So at that particular point, we will not go to any court to go and challenge it.
Okay.
Because the constitution has already created a loophole for that already. So until we correct ourselves and speak a direct language, let all of us understand ourselves.
Okay.
We are living like spectators, watching our democratic player, our leaders playing chess on our lives. Until the citizens can begin to challenge collectively and see reason to challenge the government on the way they are managing our resources from local government to state and national.
Okay, Aare, I have to cut in there, but thank you very much. You said something, you made a claim about Peter Obi not conducting local government election, and I think you're not the first person to have made this claim, but there is a verification on this claim that is published on Dubawa. Dubawa is a fact-checking platform, and according to what is here, Anambra State, before Peter Obi, had not held local government elections since 1998, covering the tenures of Mbadinuju and Chris Ngige. The elections were finally conducted towards the end of Peter Obi's tenure. So this claim has been made before, and
that is 7.5 years. 7.5 years. What is the meaning at the tail end?
Okay, so there has not been an election for the local government since 1998 before Peter Obi came on board. Okay.
I know that conducted at the state end, but that does not show. Out of 8 years, you spent 7.5 years, 3 months your vacation of the office, you now go and conduct a charade in the name of wanting to have a record. That will not prove you right. You are only deceiving yourself by half. Please, let's see reasoning in this, not sentiment.
All right. Thank you, Aare. There's a message here. This one is from Akanimo. He's from Anantika. And he says, is it because democracy is not African? That's why, that the Beavers failed to relay the presidential election result. The truth is not part of our culture. Our leaders should face fact and play by the rules. Now we have Mr. Effiong. Mr. Effiong, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
All right. Now, let me start off with asking you what you think about the statement made by former President Chief Olusegun Obasanjo and also Mr. Peter Obi about our democracy failing and not working in Nigeria.
Absolutely, very correct. Because ordinarily the things that have happened in Nigeria in the last couple of weeks are very, very worrisome, especially when these things are perpetrated and done by people who mouth democracy, people who tell you they fought for democracy, people who are damn hypocrites who told you all the good things about democracy but cannot tolerate democracy in any manner. First, to take the Natasha issue. How when the Senate says that the Senate rule says if you fail to, if you go against the rules, you are sanctioned by 2 weeks. The Senate comes out sanctioning the lady for 6 months. The Senate, what to do or not to do, the lady went to court, got a court ruling that should stop the Senate. The Senate decided to not to honor the court ruling in contempt of the court. More like, what can you do? That is 1. 2, you move on to Rivers State, where the story about how it happened and how it didn't happen is all everything is in the public domain. Now, this is what the Constitution says a different thing. The presidency goes ahead to do a different thing. The president goes ahead to deliberately and single-handedly cancel all elected officials and elected doctors in Rivers State by himself. And that's the man that talks about democracy. Now, for those of us who have lived and have walked around Lagos, know that democracy does not exist in Lagos. We also saw what happened with the Lagos State House of Assembly, where 36 out of 40 members voted to remove the speaker. But the president moved from Abuja very swiftly, got Mudashiru Obasa and 4 lawmakers, and got everybody to endorse Mudashiru, and everything about the story about whatever was going on in the Lagos State House of Assembly was killed instantly. Now, when all of these things are happening, you should worry, especially when the court that will mount the hope of the common man is the hope of those that can pay, those that can dictate it, those that can build houses and quarters for judges. Those are the people that we tolerate. So that's where we find ourselves. So what President Olusegun Obasanjo said, what Mr. Peter Obi said, and even what former President Goodluck Jonathan said about democracy and the practice under the APC, All Progressive Congress party has perpetrated in Nigeria. In the last 10 years, there's nothing about democracy that resembles it. So that's where we are.
All right. Now, Mr. Effiong, Aare thinks otherwise. He thinks that, or he says rather, in his own opinion, that the decision taken by the president as regards River State is the necessity of leadership that was done to quench whatever heightened tension or issues that would have come out if Fubara was allowed to be impeached by the lawmakers there in the River State House of Assembly.
Perspective, and that perspective is very, very pregnant with so many meanings. I'm sure if you sit back and analyze those statements, then you will understand the issue of if they allowed Fuba to be impeached or Fuba not to be impeached. In the first place, lawmakers who are no longer lawmakers, who are defected and abandoned their seats, were reinstated by the Supreme Court. And don't forget, when you look at the judgment of the Supreme Court, the prayers of whether those lawmakers should be defected or not defected was not sought. So how did the Supreme Court bring it and deliver ruling on a case that was not presented before the Supreme Court? So you look at the whole thing from a very, if you look at it on the surface of it, then you will miss the point. And what Mr. Peter Obi is trying to say is that in the first place, these lawmakers did not even really exist. So it's a sham ab initio in all of the things that have happened in River State. What does the law say about the person? These people swore to an affidavit. These people went to the press. The president of the country received them. All of that conference happened. Then all of a sudden overnight, they said they did not defect again before our very eyes. And that's criminal, Ukamaka. Criminality from the presidency, criminality from the judiciary, and very sad enough, from the Supreme Court. So when you have such a situation, you can just look at it. It's chaos. It tells you that all we are waiting for in Nigeria to happen is anarchy. And I'm sad as a person when you see other states who probably don't have any business with it, instead of keeping quiet, writing letters and endorsing illegality as perpetrated by the president because they belong to the same party, as the case is in Cross River State.
Okay. Aare, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Now, there's something that Mr. Effiong said, of which former President Goodluck Jonathan, he made mention about the court or the judiciary being compromised. You are a man of the law. What's your take on that?
Yes. You know, to me, it's kind of unfortunate when we overblow issues out of proportion. Having a blanket, leaders should be very cautious of the kind of statement they make in public, especially once they've already had experience before. When he was the president, it's not everything that happened under his nose that were correct. We saw the fraud that, so I'm coming, it's not that maybe I'm trying to condemn, but because they've equally had the experience of sitting in that office. The judiciary, I will want to retrace, is not corrupt. The judiciary is not a Father Christmas. You don't bring up a case that is that has lacunas in it and you expect to win, except you prove your case beyond reasonable doubt. At times, there are technicalities that make the case go wrong. A lot is involved. Then what is the training of a lawyer? If you tell the judiciary is wrong, then all lawyers will go and stop being a lawyer. Then those that emanate from being a lawyer, either they are in police or anywhere, everybody should resign. But that is to say that the society is bad. If everybody is castigating the judiciary and you leave your own self, how do we collectively resolve this stalemate we find ourselves? For how long are we now going to be pointing accusing finger? What has the judiciary done wrong in this whole perspective? You brought a case in terms of the fact that they reassert their 27 membership rights. I was one of the people that fought against them that for their decamping without the crisis in PDP as at the time they decamp, they are wrong. But I found out to be wrong at the end of the day because that crisis later ensued in the PDP as a party, as a date that could emanate anybody to decamp from the party because that is the rule. That if there is no crisis, you cannot decamp. But as at the time that the crisis was spreading on, it got to the court to interpret, should we see this as not a crisis, then where is the fault of the judiciary? So if a case does not go your way, does not mean the judiciary is bad. All cases, we have good judges, that doesn't mean we don't have bad judges. Just as we have bad lawyers, we equally have lawyers with conscience. So I believe strongly until the parameter that we use in judging ourselves is premised on equitable justice fairness. Until that, who is so free to call himself approved to say his hand are clean? Even Jonathan, we saw everything. Not everything is clean. So it's easier for condemnation to be raised. So people should be cautious, because it will get to a point that we raise a lot of eyebrow against the Supreme Court. A date will come that the judiciary wants to salvage the situation. But because we have all condemned it, we run ourselves aground into anarchy. We fail to honor judgment. So because nowadays, when Obasanjo was there, he denounced the judgment of the Supreme Court. He didn't even recognize the court judgment that gave Lagos State the winning. He still became, he stagnated Lagos for complete years. Or he took Yaradua and Jonathan to give them back the money. Is that democracy that people will now be championing? The Obasanjo is the hero. Hero my truth. So until what will make Tinubu is not that maybe I want to begin to back the president. It's high time the president equally must wake up. The policies and governance system is not favorable to the people. So the presidency must equally be awakened from their slumber. They are carried up with euphoria that, oh, my father is the best president. Who says such? That the son of Mr. President can interfere in governance of a state? That is even going to be more a brutal issue. Nobody is condemning that. So we need to reason that until our democracy is sanctified, and I don't know who's going to sanctify it, because God has given us the dominion power. It's not left for us as humans to reason above sentiment, and let's get it right as a country.
All right. Now, I think this is where we're going to hinge on, and as we wrap up this conversation, you talked about let's get it right. Now, I'm going to ask Mr. Effiong. Mr. Effiong, can you hear me? Okay. Now, there have been this hushed tones about 2027, and some persons are starting to prepare ahead of time for that election. Now, Nigerians are the ones that need good governance, and Nigerians are the ones that need democracy to work. What should be the stance of Nigerians? What should be their posture as we move on to 2027?
Well, it's high time citizens contribute.
No, Aare, before I come to you, let Mr. Effiong speak. Go ahead, please.
Yes, all that is playing out in Nigeria today is about 2027. You will expect that a presidency will focus on governance. We still have 2 years to that election, and the president and his team are all focused on 2027. I listened to Oladotun Hassan talk about Obasanjo. Should we improve on the mistakes of people have done, or we get worse? Or we now cite a failure of a system and use that to justify our actions? That's question number one. The other thing you need to focus on is the fact that in the years that Obasanjo was wielding the big stick, we all condemned it. But understand that Obasanjo wielded the big stick against his own party in all of those cases. And all of those cases were reversed, except one, which was the case of River State, which was a case between Alametea and the presidency at the time. All of those cases that were pushed by Obasanjo were reversed by the Supreme Court, and the presidency honored this at that time. Let's go back in time. Not all of us have the illusion or the delusion of bad history. We have history, we take notes of facts, and we deal with it, and we make sure that we put our points clear, fixing the facts. Now, that's one. That's two. Then thirdly, let me also say that this Supreme Court, as presently constituted, has given people the reasons to agree, to know that it is doing different, it is doing anything different. The Supreme Court we cannot be based everything about Nigeria from the election of this president, the sanctioning of this president. The court all decided to go by technicalities and get a man whose certificates are forged to be president of Nigeria. Akpabio did not take part in primaries. Akpabio should not even be in the Senate, but Akpabio is Senate president. A judgment by the Supreme Court. What manner of court do we have? That people that did not run for primaries in an election, not only are they candidates, they are sitting on top of it. So when you have a person like Goodluck Akpabio, was not supposed to be in the Senate. He being the Senate president. You have a president who bought certificate, being the executive head of the executive. What do you expect the legislators to do? What do you expect the judiciary to do? It tells you that what that does is opening the space for anarchy, opening the space for people to seek for self-help. It is not the responsibility of the people to go by the law. Let our leadership lead by example. It is not me, the ordinary man, the layman, that should begin to understand how I should abide by this. Let the lawyers, let the judiciary, let the legislators, let them show the way. But from what we see in Nigeria today, they are not showing the way, and that's why we are worried. And that's why we are talking.
All right.
That's why we are talking. And when we complain, they say we talk too much.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Effiong. To you, Aare, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
So the same question I asked about the posture the Nigerians should take on. We've had several conversations, whispers that persons have started planning towards 2027.
Yes, the 2027 planning towards 2027 started immediately after the swearing in of 2023 presidency, and politicians don't plan about next generation; they plan more about next election. That's a nucleus that
a sad reality.
We are wired, and it's a reality, and the best we can achieve as a people, and that's where I will call on the people that 2027 is a deciding point for Nigerian citizens to think out of the box. And in thinking out of the box, it goes a long way for all of us to now reason together. Do we really have a leader we can contribute money for, resources and material, campaign, volunteering, rather than waiting for somebody to bring bag of rice, rather than waiting for somebody to mobilize you, paying you to sign up or do anything inimical that will be injurious to your future. Until we recognize the power of our thumb and still reason that if we have to give anybody opportunity to serve us, not anybody who will run us aground on the premise of sentiment, ethnicity, political rivalry, but somebody with clear-cut agenda to consolidate on what will bring good life and benefit for the good people of Nigeria. We have suffered enough over 60 years. We are still groaning in pain, agony of military, of civilian militarized ruling. We have never even enjoyed democracy for one day. We are only running a government of a few oligarchs who believe that once they sit in that powerhouse, whatever happened to that common man in Calabar, Oshodi, or Kwara, or Kaduna is none of their concern. Even if you kill yourself overnight, the local is burning in Osun State. When will the presidency attend to that? Kidnapping is almost everywhere. When will they declare state of emergency on kidnapping and kill all kidnappers? So that we know where we are. Let's end one common problem. But because we still need orientation, and that's why I approve of your radio and what you are doing. You're giving a no-holds-back conversation. We believe that until we have freedom as the people, freedom is the only thing that is making us different from the people that are in developed countries. Not because they don't have anything, but they have freedom. Freedom to elect their choices and freedom to make good their choices. But here, even if we make our choices, they lord over us. Until we correct that impression, we need adequate training and knowledge-based leaders to serve the people.
All right, Aare, thank you so much. And also thank you, Mr. Effiong Nyong. I'll take this message as we wrap up. This one is from Nemeka from Federal Housing, and he says, good morning. I heard your guest saying that declaring state of emergency is the best option. My question to him, don't you think that there would have been a solution if Mr. President put up a phone call to Wike? Is Wike bigger than River State? I have a daughter. There is a way I will look at her and she understands that she's doing wrong. Mr. President should also have a way of doing the same thing to every member of his cabinet. All right. Thank you very much. This is where we draw the curtain on today. Once again, thank you, Aremo, and have a beautiful day. All right. All right, people. This is where we call it today. Thank you so much for allowing us to be your companion, and please enjoy the rest of today's broadcast. Ukamaka Richard Bassi is my name. God bless you.
Number one. Music, sport, and talk radio. Let it hit on.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Sparkling 92.3 FM.